Hey, stay Steve, please like and subscribe. Please click on the Decky Wells icon. Click on subscribe. It's 100% free. Blood in, blood out. And don't forget to click on the notifications just so you don't miss any amazing content. Surprise, surprise, you look to the middle right. It's about somebody being a bad father. I've not watched 1 second, 1 millisecond, or 1 milliminute about this thing. Anyway, let's go.
Brought to you by Hallow, the world's #1 prayer app. What up, Tony?
But I reached out, and my question just overall is, how can I get my wife to, to love me and trust me again? There's been a couple of things that have played into this factor, but, that's the overall premise.
Why doesn't she trust you?
So it started about, 4 years ago. Well, I mean, prior to that, let me just say this. I met my honey maybe about 8 years ago, right? A little bit over. And God, we've had a great ride, and everything that we've set out to fulfill, we fulfilled. We have a beautiful house, we have 2 baby boys. But a majority of it started about 4 years ago, is when I first had my first boy.
Hey, do me a favor, brother. Talk directly into the phone for me.
Yes.
There you go.
Is this a little bit better now?
Yeah, much.
And we had COVID had just hit. We had just gotten our first house, and I was working quite a bit, and my wife had basically just told me, hey, you're working so much, like I'm telling you, I need these things. She was telling me, I need you to be here more. I'm stressing. I want to go back to work, but I also don't want to be away from the baby. And like what can we do? How can we make this better? And not only that, but I kind of told her, instead of trying to fulfill those needs, I ended up reciprocating my frustration in my line of work at the time and saying, I want out as well, right? And so that caused her to kind of go into this emotional wreck, this emotional hurdle of, like, we're not trying to fix this, we're both on the same boat. And I really wasn't communicating, I was living by actions rather than communication. So that caused a little bit of turmoil in our relationship in that time frame. And that's where it started. We've worked on it throughout the course, but that's where a lot of it has stemmed from throughout the years from then on. Any little thing, any little hurdle that we come across, any little objection, or brings her back into that state of, why am I still continuing this? I'm putting her back into a hole. And I think a lot of it's just been my communication hasn't been the best. I've been trying to figure out how to dive into these deeper conversations, because I'm afraid that when we have had these conversations, I haven't had the answers for her, and that scares me as well.
There's something else here, because either that or she is laying down emotional finish lines for you, and every time you cross them for her, she moves them again.
Yeah.
Because she's unsettled in her own skin, and she's trying to make you fix it.
Definitely. And, she's told me this, and to be candid, about 2 years after that first incident, she delivered it to me straight on and said this wasn't working. And so, we separated. We separated for about, 3 months, still lived together because we still had our babies. But, after about 3 months of trying to fix it and trying to, work our way back to one another, I also found out that she was kind of having, I would say, an emotional affair with someone else. And in my head, I had tied it back to, this was the cause of it. This was the cause of our separation. And I know that wasn't the case, right? She said, why did it take this situation to happen for you to communicate your feelings to me?
Hold on. You keep referring to an incident, dude. And here, tell me what I'm missing, because what I hear.
Hold on, let's just summarize where we're at. Okay, so the wife doesn't really trust him, is what it's all about. Married 4 years, met about 8 years ago, got 2 boys. The wife mentioned something about him working too much, and then at some point she said she wants out. He also said he wanted out, and then they stopped communicating, which obviously created that kind of distance between them. John talked something about emotional finishing lines that he's expected. I don't know what that means. I'm going to be honest with you. It's kind of like fancy, flowery words. Anyway, so they separated for about 3 months. The wife had what the caller called an emotional affair. An emotional affair. It's not an affair. She was like talking to some. I think he means just like she was talking to somebody that she shouldn't have been for emotional support. That's what's called a friend, I think. But since it's what she shouldn't have done, listen, no. You're making fancy words, caller, for she had an actual affair. She stepped out. Anyway, we don't know. Conjecture. Let's go.
Is during a global pandemic, your wife quit her job and stayed at home with 1 or 2 new babies. You went to work and you doubled down at work.
She was still working,
okay.
but she was, because COVID had hit, she was technically
working from home.
not working from home, but wasn't slated to go back for about 6 months.
Okay. So, but the incident here is you just kept working really hard, and she was
Yes.
kind of panicked, and you were kind of panicked.
Yes.
That's not an incident. That is a innate natural response to the world imploding on itself.
Right.
It's like if a building is on fire and it starts collapsing, and then two people run out the front door. It's like the one who ran right is just furious and pissed that the other person ran left. It's like, dude, you don't judge that innate response. So, okay, cool. You didn't do that. In retrospect, you wish you had worked a little bit less and held her on the couch more, or been.
Right, the reason why listen, my head's all cloudy with this, and the reason why is because, listen, the topic is because the wife's saying that he's a bad father, and we haven't we haven't had any questions to uncover. Well, why is she saying that? What's your perspective on this thing? You know what I mean? What's a little bit of thing about what brought that to where it got to, where you're vocalizing stuff? You know what I mean? I think the callers actually tried to say that. He mentioned something about working too much, and well, why are you working too much? Is there something about the household with the boys, or with your wife, or something else which makes you feel that you kind of trying to escape into work? I mean, listen, I'm being a bit leading with it just to give you an example where my mind is at. But you'd ask questions, non-leading questions, with that at the back of your mind, and then there might be something else at the back of your mind, depending on what his response is. But so we're just going ahead. I mean, what we going ahead based on? What we going ahead? Listen, I'm going to rewind a little bit just so we don't miss anything, but I don't think we have. I still don't really know what this call is about. As I say, I know the title, and that's going to put something in front of mine, but I just need some detail in. Let's go.
Innate natural response to the world imploding on itself.
Right.
It's like if a building is on fire and it starts collapsing, and then two people run out the front door. It's like the one who ran right is just furious and pissed that the other person ran left. It's like, dude, you don't judge that innate response. So, okay, cool. You didn't do that. In retrospect, you wish you had worked a little bit less and held her on the couch more, or been more present with X, Y, or Z.
Definitely.
That's not an incident. That's a thing couples go through when there's stress and pulls on a relationship, and you learn from it, and then you move on.
Right.
So anything that happens now 3 years, 4 years later, unless I'm missing something, I think she's wanted out of this relationship for a long time.
And that's what it feels, you know.
But you called me asking, what can you do for her to trust you again? It sounds.
Now, again. Listen, let me go back a bit, so don't worry, we're not going to miss anything. Let's go back another 10 seconds. To be fair, now she did say that she wanted out before he did mention that. But as I said, if you don't drill down to find out what the main drivers of this thing is, I don't think you can reach any conclusions. You should have more questions in your head about what got there. Then hopefully, as a counsellor, well, we're not counsellors, as psychologists, but anyway, in order to understand what's going on so you can process it and build the life skills for something, you got to ask questions about why something is happening. I think that's missing at the moment. But anyway, maybe it will be revealed, and I won't keep jumping in, and we'll just see what we got, and we just work with that.
So anything that happens now 3 years, 4 years later, unless I'm missing something, I think she's wanted out of this relationship for a long time.
And that's what it feels, you know.
But you called me asking, what can you do for her to trust you again? It sounds like, and I don't want to talk ill of people who aren't here. It sounds like she's the problem. She doesn't want to trust you, or she's just going to keep using those things to see somebody else, to not have to. You see what I'm saying?
And
what am I missing?
I don't know that, and that's where I've fallen back to, because, you know, she's told me that, of course, you know, she wants to trust me again. You know, we've worked on, and the fact that we've worked on quite a bit of these things along the way.
But Tony, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What did you do to violate trust? You worked too much during a pandemic?
No. I mean, that was the initial start.
Did you cheat on her?
No, I've never cheated on her, but there was a time where last year, I in my job, I work sales, and so there was an event that I wanted to take my wife to, and it was for a client event, and I, you know, when she had gotten home, because she was working a little bit late, she had gone home, and I was already ready. I was like, "You're going to come with me?" And she said, "No, you should just go alone." And so, you know, in my head, I was like, "Okay, I'm just going to go." And I was there for about maybe an hour, and then I came back, and I was just there, right, with meeting with a client, meeting with I think a few coworkers that were potentially going to go, but they never did. And I came back home. My wife had seen a text on my phone from one of my other coworkers from some time prior to that, of me saying something like, hey, I'm here waiting for you. I'm going to get down. And this is for a whole separate company luncheon event. But she kind of it tailored back into that, like, what is going on, right? Is this why, you wanted to go to this event but didn't want me to go? And
bro,
and
you are being gaslit to Mars and back.
Uh-huh.
If my wife,
We're going to get into the detail again. We're not going to miss it. I'm going to go back another 10 seconds just again, make sure we haven't missed it. But at least John has asked that. Said I watched a lot of these videos. At least he's done that deeper dive now. I think he was reaching conclusions, but now we've asked questions in order to kind of solidify, the direction of future questions, and as I have something in the back of our mind in terms of why things are happening. And once we know why things have happened, we can try and solve that little kind of things. But the wife does say something about, why she doesn't want to trust him. Yeah, saw this text, as I said, took it potentially the wrong way. He's saying it's something to do with a work event. She's read that. Do we think that she's read that one text in isolation and she hasn't read the previous texts, or she hasn't read who that text has come from? Do we know if that's actually come from a lady? Is there any background to that lady in any other respect? Let's hope we ask those questions. Otherwise, this caller's just going to produce a narrative which kind of suits himself. You know what I mean? You're not going to put yourself up there to be shot down. You do need to push on these questions. And I do appreciate that John's listening to this for the first time. I'm listening to this for the first time. You're listening listen to this for the first time. We need to, anyway, let's go forwards.
Right? Is this why, you wanted to go to this event but didn't want me to go? And
bro, you are being gaslit to Mars and back.
Uh-huh.
If my wife, if she found a text on my phone to Kelly that said, hey, I'm waiting for you, where are you? Actually, that text would probably be in reverse, like a lot. Like her, Kelly texting me, where are you? Because I'm late. But it would never even enter my wife's mind that I'm having a sexual affair with somebody.
And I think for me, the biggest reason was within one of those texts, I deleted one of them just because I felt like it came off as like they had said something about like, oh, I appreciate you and something. And I said, I don't want this in my phone because if my wife reads it, she's going to get this misconception.
Yeah, that's unhealthy. That's unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's unhealthy on your part. You are living inside of an electric cattle fence. I don't believe, unless you're totally withholding on me, I don't think you're the one. Like getting a text message from a female coworker that says, hey, I appreciate you, awesome job, on a sales call, on a bailing me out of a thing, on a whatever. Right? That's not a weird thing. Unless your spouse has specifically said, you have violated my trust in the past, and part of rebuilding trust is going to be, I don't want you texting female coworkers. She gets.
I'm wondering, okay, I can't remember exactly what the text was about. Are you going to go to this event? Is anybody else wondering, is this an overnight stay type of event? We don't know because the question's not asked. And I think once you've got so I'm taking this right route. John's taking the left route, the one where he's just deciding to believe whatever the speaker is telling him without kind of dealing beyond that surface. But before I get to that, I'd want to know a few more questions, not like in a point the finger way, just kind of reveal some facts kind of way. This is it, right? So, okay, well, I think she has already cheated, right? So that's one thing. She may be kind of doing that, putting her own kind of actions onto somebody else, potentially. But say if it was your partner, you've read that message about going to that work event. That's number one. Something about appreciating you. And it's about the tonology of that text, whatever was used, could well be problematic. Could easily be problematic. And say if it's somebody you already got a suspicion about. Say if it's somewhere, it's going to involve an overnight stay. And are you going to come to... It's just a little bit more... Basically, there's a little bit more to that text. As a common sense person, that you may well read into it and think, I know where this is going. And obviously I'm not going to be comfortable with my partner going out and meeting that kind of person. You know what I mean? So we need a deeper dive. We would have wanted a deeper dive anyway, but we got what we got.
To say that, and you get to decide whether I'm in or out on that.
100%, and that's why I think the biggest thing that she has stated to me, and I would never not say that. She hasn't reciprocated her needs. It's been about communication. This is what I need from you in intimacy. This is what I need from you in communication. And I've been living through actions rather than communicating those things. When she said, I need you to be more present. I need you to make home feel like home.
Yeah. Hold on, but you have to be specific.
Uh-huh. There's times where she stated where she'll come home and she feels like she gets a negative, like a cold shoulder from me, like I'm giving her a glare from the side.
Yeah, bro, dude, she is this. I feel like she's burning you to the ground.
Uh-huh.
You can't just say like, hey, when you came home, you were cold. How? Yeah, you were just cold.
Yeah.
Or hey, man, you don't like you make it hard to trust. How? Because you just are hard to trust.
Right.
Or I need you more available. Okay, like I'm all in. Oh my gosh, you don't know.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Do you know how many women listening to this phone call would kill for their husbands to talk less and actually like go act right?
Right.
And I've had seasons when I'm in my head, I'm cold walking in the door. And my wife says, hey, when you come in and you're staring at your phone, on one phone, your social media phone, and you're on the other phone, you're not done with work.
Yeah.
That's a specific request. Hey, when I come...
You know, I do actually completely agree with John on this one. I definitely do. The speaker say he doesn't communicate with language, he communicates with actions. And he's saying it, and I think he's saying it in a way where he kind of half knows that's not sufficient to get past this problem, right? It's not sufficient. And if your gut is telling you, yeah, you just need to kind of make what you've done front of mind. Because otherwise, who knows? Maybe you do those actions and it gets completely overlooked. And then the problem's not resolved. That's what he's saying on the inside, but for some reason that's what I believe anyway. I think you probably agree. But for some reason he isn't just vocalizing. Maybe it's that kind of tension. And the way to handle it as a leader and as a man in this difficult situation is to acknowledge what the problems are and just be brave enough to chart that path. You know what I mean? So yeah, the greater good was this, the greater good is that. The greater good is that you're going to have to at some point talk with a calm voice and an open stance because you actually want to get to resolution, not more pain. You know what I mean? That at least some of the time, somebody else, the other partner, other side of the relationship may want to go through the pain route. You want to go through the resolution route. And you got to stick to that resolution path, basically. If you say, listen, I don't want to go, even if you say what I've just said, I don't want to drag out the maximum amount of pain from this situation. I'm trying to resolve it and I do love you and I want to solve it. I'm trying my best here. I just need you to acknowledge it. All right. And if they refuse to acknowledge it again and again, that's that. But if you've literally done it, I don't know what there is to not acknowledge. And again, it's not going to be a straightforward linear path necessarily to resolution, but it may be a little bit zigzag. But as long as you're kind of working to get there, then maybe you can. John make an excellent point as well about if she says that he's being cold and he's being this and he doesn't believe that he's actually being that, then yeah, part of what I've said before about the calm tones and just the open stance and wanting to go to resolution, just got to ask her to be a little bit specific about what she means, about what she's saying. About what? Sorry, I didn't realise. What? Can you be a bit more specific? And then if it turns out that she's kind of creating a situation in her head in order to drag out the pain, you've got to flag that up when you see it. You've got to flag that up when you see it. And it may well feel like a can't win situation. You definitely won't win if you allow it to fester. You've got to man up and, I say, follow the advice that John's given in this instance.
From work, will you stop whatever you're doing and just meet me at the door and give me a hug? Yeah, of course. That's a specific request. What's happening to you is somebody who has put on a pair of glasses that is anything I feel bad about in my own skin is his fault. And no matter what he does, he goes and provides too much, well, then I'm going to complain that he's not, quote unquote, around. What does around mean? I don't know. I'm just going to keep moving that. When you walk in the door after leaving work an hour early or half an hour early so you can be, quote unquote, present, then it's, well, now you're coming in cold. All right, what does that mean? Well, you should know. Here's the thing. I want to move a little bit past the words need in your home. I want to move past that. I think the word need is becoming a weapon in your home. I want you to move to the word want. Because need, it sounds like you're starving somebody of something. Like, I need food or I'm going to die. I need water or I'm going to dehydrate. I need this or I need presence or I need, there comes a moment in a relationship. It's really important to say what you need, but there comes a moment when the word need is a weapon. So I want y'all to switch it. I want you to say, here's what I want. And I want you to be very specific on pictures and words. When she says, you came in cold, I want you to look at her and say, okay, paint me a picture of what you want when I come in the door. I love you to the moon and back. I'm going to give you that picture. What do you want that? I don't know. What picture do you want? You want me to have no bag? You want me to have my phones off and left in the car? What do you want? You want me to come in with my arms wide open? What do you want that to look like? What do you want the morning routine to look like? What do you want our sex and intimacy life to look like? What do you want? Because you're getting a lot of amorphous needs, and need is just beating you over the head with a hammer and not giving you any clear direction. And bro, I don't hear a thing you did to quote unquote violate trust unless she said, if you go to work again past 6 o'clock, I'm gonna just assume you don't love me. And you were like, yeah, I don't care. I'm gonna stay till 10. But it doesn't sound like that's what happened. So this
I totally agree with what John. Well, I agree with the bit about kind of listen. You describe, you kind of flesh out what you when you said cold, what you need me to do, and I'm more than happy to do it. You know what I mean? I love you, and I want this thing to work. You know what I mean? So as long as it's reasonable, you've got it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And just with a genuine heart, you just actually want to fix this thing. The bit that I don't agree with John about, so I agree with you 100% on that, 100% on that. And we've definitely gone on a journey with, as I say, John's asked those questions, and we've gone to this point, which I think is the correct point too. But he asked, well, she's got nothing to worry about. Hold on, we've just forgotten the texts that he's getting from this mystery co-worker about that event that, and what is it now? I appreciate you. I mean, that's not necessarily alarming. It just depends who said it and what the context of what was said, and everything else you know about it. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's go.
is one of those clarifying, put your arm on the table and just wipe everything off of it, and you look across the table with your wife and say, do you want to be married to me? Because I want to be married to you. And I can't figure out how to meet your quote unquote needs. So I want to hear, what do you want? What do you want? And
I don't think brinkmanship is the thing so early, but everything else, yeah.
by the way, you get to make a list of the things that you want. And it sounds like the Gottmans talk about this, but you have to assume positive intent if your marriage is going to make it. You have to change your default setting. And what I mean by that is you have to assume that if somebody says something wrong or comes in a little bit cold, that they're not doing it to spite you. They're doing it because, man, they must have had a rough day. Or, man, their head must be somewhere else. Or they must have just survived a car wreck on the way home. Like, it's assuming the best, not assuming I feel bad or I've had a rough day or I'm angry or whatever. And it has to be your fault because you said it wrong, your intentions were wrong, your text message is wrong. And now here's the deal, Tony. You're finding yourself deleting, like, innocuous, like, coworker messages. Hey, great job on the sales call today. You're deleting that because you don't want to poke the dragon. Your marriage is on thin ice, brother. And I think it's one of those stop the music, turn on the lights moments. Do you want to be married to me? Because I really want to be married to you. What do we both want this thing to look like? Very specifically in pictures, and we're going to begin to practice that. Because my guess is your wife, for some reason, for whatever reasons, has become very uncomfortable with the life that she has co-created. And instead of saying what she wants, she's blaming you for every ill will, every discomfort that she has, and it's not fair. She's got to own her stuff. You've got to own yours. And together, you have to say, I'll serve you and you serve me. Let's go build something amazing. So I think it's time.
Okay, I really like the bit about kind of assuming the best and going in with a positive mindset. And you need to go into that positive mindset and not thinking, oh, every single word or every single syllable of what you've just said. Oh, what did you really mean by that? You know what I mean? That's not really a man thing to do, but it is kind of like a relationship is on dodgy ground thing to do. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to go into emotional objective thinkers. When a relationship's kind of in that tense situation, both can be aligned to think like that and not assume the best, to assume the worst. That's the dodgy ground situation, the worst bit. I think to get to that Brinksman conversation of do you want to be married to me or not? I say you ask a question enough times and eventually you may not get the answer that you want. So I wouldn't say that initially, but once you do feel that you are certain enough across that line where we are on the brink, then you might need that kind of last shock, to bring it back. But I don't know. That's not where my thoughts are at. Anyway, let's go. Last 2 minutes. Let's go.
Do you want to be married to me? And let's reverse engineer that question. Whew. If you got some specifics, brother, I'm always here. And if she wants to call, I'm always here.
Right at the end anyway, perfect timing anyway. So yeah, very interesting one. I think there's a lot of relationships. You don't have to necessarily be in a marriage. You don't necessarily have to be having random texts from random people or co-workers necessarily in order for a relationship to get tense at some point. But it's just about how you navigate through. And I think that assuming the best kind of mindset on both sides is definitely very good, and I'm happy they did that. Digging down into the questions of why this thing came about. I think there's definitely levels before the things that I talked about earlier about why there's some tension or like why there is some distance, why he was working his excess hours during COVID. But you know, it does sound like he's working more hours in order to kind of escape the family home. But I would have liked to do more deep dives. But I do acknowledge as well, in a phone show, there's only so much you can do. Set the groundwork so you know what you're talking about going forwards, and it's worth talking about. You know what I mean? So if it was my show, maybe one day I would definitely be asking more questions in more areas just to uncover a few things. But still very interesting. I love these kind of situational problems. You have got to think on the spot. Anyway, please. Oh, by the way, I do have a degree in psychology and a master's degree in economics. So and a very kind of active life in the bustling city of London, which I love. Please like, subscribe. There, Stephen. I'm out.